Sox do play to run in this inning, but the major story, Steve, is not that the Sox were able to score during this inning. It's the fact that Yasmani Grandal suffered a horrific injury, and it didn't look good. There's so much to unpack here, but Yasmani Grandal was sent on a ball hit by Elvis Andrus while he was on second base, and the play at the plate was sad and horrific, and I'll turn it to Steve.
There are a number of things to unpack here. First and foremost, you have Yasmani Grandal on second base in the seventh inning of a 1-0 ball game against a team you are chasing with Shane Bieber on the mound. Apparently, Sleepy McDrunkface was in the midst of a little nap and didn't realize that he had Adam Engel on the bench. Could have pinch run for him in that spot, knowing that you have another catcher on your roster, Sebi Zavala, that you could have used later on in the bottom half of the seventh inning. Boy, that would have really kind of turned things around there, but that's not why you called. So, base hit up the middle, Elvis Andrus. Joe McEwing, he's had about a week or two of us not calling out his terrible sends on this broadcast. And boy, did he really make up for it tonight. Literally deciding with no outs, mind you, to send the slowest base runner in the league, a guy that has scored on non-home runs, I believe 5 times all season. So he, for some reason, thought that this was a good idea to send Yasmani Grandal. And if you watch the replay, Grandal kind of turns around and looks. And it's almost like he's thinking to himself, he's sending me in this spot right here. And he's toast. Miles Straw makes a good throw, good, strong, accurate throw. And Grandal tries to evade the tag, runs out of the baseline, and in the process of so, plants wrong, and he just immediately goes down. And he's clutching the knee. This is a guy that's 33 years old, going to be 34 in November, has had 2 knee procedures in the last 12 months. For a catcher, that's not good. So now you see this happening, and immediately all of White Sox Twitter collectively said to ourselves, that's a blown out ACL. We will never see Yasmani Grandal in a White Sox uniform ever again. Because if that's a 9 to 12 month process here, I mean, you don't see him till maybe July, August of next year. You got to face the facts here. The Sox have some roster construction issues, and I'm probably jumping the gun here a little bit. And this is a serious discussion that's going to have to be had. They will likely have to give serious consideration to DFAing Yasmani Grandal if it is indeed a torn ACL that is going to require a 12-month process here for him to recover, because you need that roster spot. You're going to have to pay him the money anyway, and you can't afford to just burn the roster spot knowing some of the issues that this team has already. So the fact of the matter is that we will probably never see Yasmani Grandal in a White Sox uniform again. And for all the people this year that were bitching and moaning about his performance at the plate, saying that, oh, just get rid of him, I never want to see him in a Sox uniform again. Well, you've got your wish now, because Joe McEwing inexplicably decided to send him home on a ball that should have never happened. And the guy's career may be over right now, because he's going to be 34 in November. Now going to have to potentially have a 3rd knee procedure here in a 15-month stretch for a catcher. That could be a death nail in the career of Yasmani Grandal, and it sucks.
It does, Steve, and there's a lot to unpack on this. And I know you threw out some Adam Engel stuff out there with Tony La Russa and everything. I want to cut past the crap here, because regardless of if La Russa pinch ran for him or whatever, the send by Joe McEwing on this play, at least to me, might be the most egregious thing I've ever seen in baseball. You've got a wet field. You've got the slowest runner in baseball. The game situation didn't even call for a send. And then knowing who was being sent there, to me, is absolutely fucking mind-boggling. I can't put 2 and 2 together on this play.
It just defies all logic.
It really does, because when you add all of this up, Steve, when you add it all up, slowest runner, the game situation, the knee history, the other times he's been sent home before on plays that were less egregious than this, and then you got to start to take the external factors out. This is the highest paid White Sox free agent signing of all fucking time. This is going to haunt this organization. And the reason it's going to haunt this organization, Steve, is because a lot of the contracts they've handed out to free agents haven't worked because of shit like this. And if you think that Jerry Reinsdorf's going to go hand $300 million to somebody after what Yasmani Grandal,
you got to hand $100 million to someone before you hand $300 million.
You do, but that's why we're never going to advance any farther than this, is because look at Dallas Keuchel and Yasmani Grandal are the 2 prime examples of this latest batch. You know how I'm
going to push back on that in this regard, because before this season, Yasmani Grandal was living up to the contract.
That's fair. That's fair. And even though that there's some debate on last year's season, Steve, I will say that he still lived up to the contract because he was a productive member of the Chicago White Sox.
In the second half, when he came back from his knee surgery, he was one of the 5 most productive offensive players in the entire sport. That is not debate. So that in itself right there.
But what happened this year with him? Is this just rapid decline? Is it the injury was never fully healed? Did he go too hard in the second half of 21? Did they rush him back? These are all valid questions.
So there's a couple of things here. So he had the cleanup procedure in the offseason, and then with the lockout that took place, not being able to do the rehab at the team facilities, I've heard through the grapevine that he talked very openly about the fact that played a significant role in his rehab process. We can talk all we want about veteran guys. They should know what they have to do from a rehab standpoint and everything. But the fact of the matter is that these teams and the facilities that they have, especially in Arizona, in Glendale, everything that these guys need is right there. You've got the training staff there. You've got all the necessary equipment. That is the best possible way and the best place for them to do that rehab. So that apparently was a significant issue for him, unfortunately. And I think particularly for a guy that is 33 years old, Anthony, you know this as someone that's in your 30s now, the body doesn't recover as well as it did when you were in your 20s. Can you hashtag confirm that?
Steven, I'm sitting here thinking to myself as you're talking on a Saturday night where I've consumed a considerable amount of victory beers. And I thought for a second I'm 30, but I think I'm actually 31. We're still hashtag working to confirm this information in my brain. I'm trying to find the answer here, but I'm pretty sure I'm 31. And as you talk about 33 and the Yasmani Grandal stuff is coming up, Steve, I'm very concerned. But you've passed these numbers, so you have more experience than I do. So I'll toss it to you. It's probably not good.
It's, in fact, not great, Bob, as you get closer to that 40 number, the little soreness, the little nagging injuries that you get from day to day, they're a lot more challenging. And
is that hashtag confirmed?
That is hashtag confirmed.
Okay.
And I'm not even someone that is having to squat every day for my job. So the amount of wear and tear that comes on a knee from playing the catching position is substantial.
I don't want to go down a huge rabbit hole, but why did the White Sox choose to spend that much money on a catcher in the rebuild at that age?
Because that's
knowing that would be a risk.
Because that's the market value. That's the market rate. Plain and simple.
Steve never skips legs day.
I did leg day this morning, in fact, mind you.
This is fantastic. Steve, if Yasmani Grandal was doing as much leg day as you, would he be hashtag okay right now?
I mean, that's all speculative, Your Honor. I mean, the fact of the matter is, anybody can plant weird if you're running trying to evade a tag. So, the squats and the deadlifts and the walking lunges and everything else that you can do to try to build a good, strong foundation.
Well, you had Dr. Nirav Shah on the show a couple 2-3 weeks ago. I'm curious to once we get some diagnosis on this, we might have to bring Mr. Shah back on here. Sorry, not Mr. Shah, Dr. Shah back on here to figure out what this actually looks like. Steve, I'm kind of sad. I'm kind of sad about this because in the grand scheme of things, Yasmani Grandal has not been good for the White Sox, and that's opened up a lot of voices on Twitter, myself included, to say, like, I don't want to see Yasmani Grandal in the White Sox lineup. I would have rather had Gavin Sheets at DH yesterday. There's a lot of people who are in that camp, or throw somebody else out there. On the second side of that paper, there is Yasmani Grandal. Great career as a baseball player. Somebody who's given his body and time and dedication to the White Sox organization. At the end of the day, these guys are all humans. And then you see such an egregious send by Joe McEwing that we don't know the answers yet. But there's a lot of people out there saying, holy shit, that might be the last time you see Yasmani Grandal in a White Sox uniform. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to Yasmani Grandal. I don't think that's fair to the guy that's given his body to the White Sox. We're not talking about somebody who's no one's ever questioned Yasmani Grandal's toughness. No one's ever gone out and said Yasmani Grandal isn't out there trying. Yes, you've watched as a White Sox fan a pretty rapid decline over the 2022 season. In a year where they really needed that production out of him that he had a couple years prior. As a person, watching him go out this way on the field tonight is really sad to me as a White Sox fan. It sucks. And I love that you kind of said, for all those people who never want to see Yasmani Grandal in the lineup again, it really puts things into perspective, Steve. I'm a huge perspective guy. I think at the end of the day,
baseball perspective?
Yeah, some baseball perspective. At the end of the day, this is not cool, man. It sucks to watch this. I hate seeing this. It's probably one of the more painful moments of the White Sox season to me, to see him go down and have to get carried off the field when he's battled back from multiple injuries. The bat hasn't worked for him. Everybody's been hard on him. And then to have that happen, it just feels like real bum luck. And I absolutely have feels for Yasmani Grandal right now, because that's not what he would choose.
You're spot on there, Anthony. And, the other thing, too, that I think should be mentioned here is Yasmani Grandal has held himself personally accountable for his struggles this season. He has not hidden from them. He has not been a guy like Nicky Swish back in 2008, who pouted and hid from the cameras when he was struggling or made excuses, or like Dallas Keuchel, who would go out there and would constantly blame everybody but himself. Yaz, kind of similar to Lance Lynn in a way, where he's calling out the fact that he's been horseshit this year. He knows it. This is a guy that held himself to a very high standard. He's been a successful player for a really long time, been a part of a lot of really good teams. And to have the season that he's had to this point, it has to be unbelievably frustrating for him as a competitor. And then to see it come to conclusion, and I know we're jumping the gun a little bit here. We don't have the diagnosis yet here, but we all saw what we saw here tonight. It didn't look good. Yeah. So
especially because, and I want to insert this, they said that Carlos Perez, this was Tony La Russa in the post-game show, Carlos Perez will be coming to Chicago tomorrow, and he's looked okay.
He's got 17 home runs in Charlotte.
It's not Yasmani Grandal in his prime, though. There's a big problem, Steve. A lot of White Sox fans right now have this mindset of Yasmani Grandal over the 2022 season. It's not been great. So you hype up a bunch of other guys. You see a guy like Carlos Perez do this in AAA. That's not where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be having the 2018 through 2020, 2021 Yasmani Grandal production out of that spot. You traded Zach Collins because he did not work for a guy like Reese McGuire. And obviously, when push came to shove, Reese McGuire wasn't able to do the job. So you parted ways with him for Jake Diekman to give yourself some help. You're incredibly thin at catcher. There's no guarantees that Carlos Perez comes up and does anything, despite the scouting reports that say he could be a viable backup. The Sebi Zavala train, unfortunately, is the only train you're riding on the rest of the year, Steve. I don't think there's anything out there that you can go pick up like an Elvis Andrus. I know we had a comment in here that was asking that question. I don't think there's anything out there that you can go pick up, Steve. They're backed into a corner, and what kind of makes it even worse is that you paid a lot of money to not be in this position, and you are.
Yeah, no, it is very difficult. Kind of looking at Carlos Perez objectively here, this is a guy that has been more of a defensive first guy since he got into the organization when they signed him out of the DR as an amateur, and he's kind of risen his way up through the system here. He's got very good bat to ball skills, doesn't swing and miss a lot, makes a lot of contact, doesn't strike out very much. Again, the 17 home runs this year in Charlotte could be a little bit misleading because that is a little bit of a bandbox there. But there are a lot of people that have always thought that this was a guy that was going to be a viable major league catcher, not necessarily an everyday one. So now you're in a position where you are going to have to platoon with him and with Sebi Zavala. And Sebi, we really have seen a precipitous decline for him offensively here since that hot start that he came up that was largely BABIP fueled. So, you're kind of just in a position here where you've got to take what you can get out of the catching position. The one thing now that it really does is it clears up a little bit of the logjam that was taking place between Jose Abreu, Andrew Vaughn, and Gavin Sheets. This is really going to just, and honestly, what needs to happen at this point is Andrew Vaughn needs to be your everyday DH. Take his glove away, unless you want to give Pito a blower and have him be a DH for a day in there. And I think especially right now, given some of the hamstring issues that he's got going on, it's probably good to get him off of his feet a little bit here and get him out of the field. So this does open up a little bit of flexibility from that standpoint. It sucks that it had to come under these circumstances here, but they're just going to have to make do with Carlos Perez and Sebi Zavala at the catcher position here for the remainder of the year. Unfortunately, it's just whatever they get at this point.
And again, we're jumping the gun, but we saw what we saw. If there's any sort of injury update on Yasmani Grandal, we'll have it over for you at the ontapsportsnet.com. Be sure you're checking that out for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs.